Hi everyone, my name is Abby. I am the social media manager for Sizigi. Today we are going to be interviewing with Isabelle Lee. She's one of our HR interns. It is with great pleasure that we are bringing her on today. I'm just going to wait a couple of seconds before we get started, just because it does take some time for our users to be notified that we are going live. So Isabelle should be helping us or joining us shortly. And I will just give you a little bit of background, is a rising senior at UCI, and she is currently studying psychology sciences and social ecology with a minor in civic and community engagement. She's big into mental health, and as most of you know, September is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we are going to be talking about mental health within the workplace today and some of the things that Isabelle is doing with her studies as well as on her own time. So I'm really excited for you guys to meet her. In the meantime, just be advised that we are still holding applications for our case competition. So if you are an undergraduate student looking to kind of present your talents or any business strategy or business plan that you had put together for school, we are still accepting applications for that. It is completely free to enter. You can enter with up to 4 different business partners. And the best part about it is that we are going to be having a panel of professional judges to give you feedback based upon what you've presented to us. There are internship incentives at stake, financial incentives at stake. You can get Sizigi swag and a great letter of recommendation, as well as some one-on-one time with Tony Miles, our CEO, at the end of this whole program. So definitely a lot of great things that are happening. In addition to that, we are releasing a new software soon, so that is exciting as well. We cannot wait for you guys to start using our new software and to really just explore Sizigi for what it is and all of the great techniques that you can showcase and all of the great skills that you can show on your portfolio when you're going through the hiring process. So with that being said, we're just going to wait just a little bit for Isabelle to join. She will be in shortly, and then we'll get into the interview questions and we'll turn it over to the audience. If anybody has any questions or wants to chime in, that would be awesome. And yeah, stay tuned. All right, Isabelle's here. Hi, Isabelle. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us today. Everybody, this is Isabelle Lee. She's our very own HR intern. She's doing a lot of great stuff, as I have previously said, but if you're just coming into the live stream now, she is a rising senior at UCI. She is studying psychology, sciences, as well as social ecology with a minor in civic community engagement. She does a lot of great work within the mental health industry, and she also works within the mental health lab in research and development at UCI, and she also has her own mental health blog. So thank you, Isabelle, for joining us today. It's such a pleasure to have you on. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to everyone about mental health and Sizigi. It's so amazing. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, let's get right into it. So let's just talk about what you're currently doing within, your own studies. I know that you are working within the mental health lab, but let's talk about your personal blog that you have for mental health. I'd really love to know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. I actually started this blog in 2011, so it'll be a decade in January, actually, since I've had it.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I originally started it in middle school because I went to a middle school that was very STEM heavy. It was focused on academics and things like that. And, my friends were telling me about Tumblr at this time. And originally I just started it off thinking oh, it's a cool place just to repost photos. But then I saw a lot of cyberbullying happening there. And I was like, oh, what's one way I can make these people who get cyberbullied lives a bit easier. And I was like, why don't I just create like a safe space? So that's where my blog really started. And it's really just like a culmination of just posting every day, reposting other people's like inspirational photos, like creating my own pages related to like how to talk to someone who might be going through anxiety, or how to help someone who might be going through a panic attack, how to note like what an emotionally abusive relationship are, things like that, just acting as resources for those who might not know how to address like a mental health issue, things like that. And then ever since then, like 10 years from now to, or 10 years ago to now, what I've noticed is, like what inspires me most about my blog is my ability to be able to meet people from all over the world, and for them to trust me enough to share their story. And, every single time someone asks me a question or shares me their story, I'm like, wow, it's such an honor, because, they could have gone and told anyone else. They could have told their close friends, but they decided to entrust me, who's like a stranger on the internet, about their story. And that just really inspires me. So for me, my blog has definitely been a huge passion of mine, and definitely motivated me to be so involved in mental health.
That's amazing. I know that it's tough sometimes on the internet. Not a lot of people can always be kind, but when you do find those internet friends, they are one of the most amazing people, or the most amazing people that you have come in contact with. It's crazy that we can kind of create a friendship through virtual with. So it's really amazing that you get to, talk to these people and help them through your blog. So with that being said, I know that this month is Mental Health Awareness Month, and there's a lot of stigma that kind of comes with mental health and work coinciding with one another. So do you think, in your own opinion, that mental health should be discussed more openly at work, or how should people kind of go about, talking to others or talking to their coworkers or higher ups about what's happening within their lives or how they're feeling mentally?
Yeah, and actually, that's pretty much the reason I want to go into HR, is because I know mental health is a very stigmatized topic, especially in a corporate setting. And, now more than ever with COVID-19, with the Black Lives Matter movement, everyone's mental health has been affected. And it's really important to normalize conversations around mental health, because that reduces the stigma. And, everyone has days where they just don't feel mentally okay, and that's completely fine and valid. And it's important to address that in a work culture, because, some days people just might not have the ability to be able to get up and go to work, and we need to be okay with that. And I think, when it comes to mental health struggles, just being honest with being honest with the higher ups and letting them know what you're going through, and being vulnerable about those situations is really important, because, you don't want, I think, especially in the US, we tend to have this idea that we always need to be productive, and that, even if we're not okay, we always have to put work first and then put our mental health last. But that really does damage more to us in the long term, and that's not fair to us. And mental health should just be as important as physical health. When you get an injury, the first thing you do is either patch yourself up with band-aids or medicine, or go to the doctor. And that should be similar for mental health. If you're struggling, you should be able to take a mental health day. And I think it's really important, especially in corporate culture, to allow for mental health days, just because it can be an emergency just like any other emergencies in our life, and that should be just normalized in conversations. By having those conversations with higher ups, and by having trainings implemented in companies, that can really shift the way in how people work with one another. And when you go to a company that values your mental health, that really can make you a better employee actually in the long term. So just addressing and having those conversations are really important.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's hard sometimes for people to feel comfortable, bringing these topics to light, but is there any advice that you might have for some, especially, within the work setting or the virtual work setting, especially now that COVID and Black Lives Matter, all of the events that have been occurring that you have said, severely damaged people's mental health. What are some resources or tips or helpful things that one could do to turn this around?
Yeah, I think definitely like if there is someone that you do trust at your workspace, like utilizing that person, letting them know that you're going through some things. And I think especially with COVID-19, BLM, and all of the other social justice movements that are happening recently, companies have become more open to the idea of social justice and like mental health awareness. And, I've seen a lot more companies be more culturally, be more like inclusive and be more open-minded when it comes to like these social justice issues. So really talking to those that you trust in the company, and also like having these conversations with your manager. When you have these conversations with your manager, it opens up a huge conversation, and it allows you to sort of build that trust with your manager. So definitely reaching out to your manager and letting them know like, hey, actually, is there like, do you think we can set up like a 10 to 15-minute call? There are some things that I would like to discuss with you. And then like starting off from there, letting them know like what you've been going through. And, like I've noticed that when you tend to be the person who opens up first, then other people tend to open up to you as well. And you sort of build that trust over time. But definitely these conversations can be hard at first. But I definitely recommend like having those conversations with close friends at first and see how those go. And then, maybe that will help you figure out what you would want to say in a more professional setting. But I think right now companies, especially managers, are being more mindful of everything that everyone is going through and being more mindful of people's mental health.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about your work within the UCI Mental Health Lab, because that's really exciting as well. What are some things, if you're allowed to talk about them, that you're currently working on right now?
Yeah, so I work on 3 separate projects within the UCI Team Lab, which is the Technology and Mental Health Lab. And some of the work that we do is, so there's a website that we look over called One Mind Cyber Guide. And One Mind Cyber Guide essentially looks at all the mental health smartphone applications on like the Google App Store, the Google Play Store, or the Apple Store, and then the Google Play Store, and we go and look at them for credibility. So a lot of mental health apps actually don't always have like people on the advisory boards that are certified mental health professionals, and you don't want to like download an app meant for, let's say, anxiety, and for it to only increase your anxiety rather than decrease it. So we look at its credibility, and we go ahead and download the application and do like a thorough review of it. So One Mind Cyber Guide is a really good resource if you're ever interested in learning more about a specific app that's mental health related on like the App Store or Google Play Store. Another thing I'm doing right now is I'm doing like my own research study on a mood tracking application and its effects on mental health and well-being. So that's really important just because there isn't too much literature on mood tracking applications and their effects on one's well-being. So that's something I've been working on and something I'm working on over the next year. And my last project is more related to creating focus groups for UCI students and learning about what gaps they think are currently in the UCI mental health resources and figuring out solutions that are effective for them. So just like 3 different project areas, but they're all related to mental health, just really showing that mental health affects like every aspect. And, there's more than one way to get involved when it comes to like mental health advocacy.
That is amazing, Isabelle. I can't even fathom the amount of work that you must have right now. I hope that you yourself are also taking time, to just kind of decompress, because work can be a lot, especially, with the school and all of these new projects and senior year. So it's definitely a lot to handle, but you seem to be doing amazing. And yeah. So did we want to turn these questions over to the audience? Does anybody have any questions they want to ask Isabelle in terms of what she's doing at UCI or within the mental health lab? Just waiting for them to come in. A lot of people are applauding you for the amount of work that you have done over the past decade. It is amazing to see somebody that is also so young, but has so much experience under their belt and so much passion for a topic that doesn't really get a lot of credit, especially within the work industry or the corporate culture. But yeah, people cannot believe that you have had this many experiences so far. So it is amazing to hear from you and and about your projects.
Thank you. Yeah, no, definitely. Like, I think everyone can be a mental health advocate by just even talking about it with your friends or checking in with your friends, that by having these conversations, you can really normalize like mental health conversations and decrease that stigma. So, anyone can be a mental health advocate. It doesn't have to be as huge as like joining like a research lab or anything like that. There's always things every day that you can do to really lessen that stigma. And, it's sort of like once people recognize like that you're taking care of yourself, so they might be inspired. So it does that domino type of effect as well.
Absolutely. I definitely can see that happening. Kind of like, if you pay for someone's food behind you or something, it kind of is like a domino effect.
Yeah.
So same thing is like random acts of kindness. I am a strong believer in kind of just treating people how you want to be treated, being nice to everybody. And, you never know what somebody is going through. You never know what they're dealing with in their life. And it's always important to be nice and considerate when you're meeting new people or people that you've known your whole life. So we do have one question, and I'm going to pop it up on the screen. Raymond said, what is one primary goal that you have or that you hope to achieve with mental health in the near future?
In the near future, I think like one goal that I have would definitely be to sort of create more mental health related projects that affect college students, because I think with college students, they obviously face not only the stigma when it comes to trying to seek out mental health related help, but they also face like additional barriers, whether that's financial, whether that might be just they might not have the time to go to counseling services. So working with the current places that I'm working at with mental health and trying to find ways where it might make it more accessible for students to come in. So whether that be like increasing the number of like counseling appointments that we have, like working with the counseling center, creating more programs related to mental health and like its relation to COVID-19, just trying to like listen to the students and see what they need, and also like find resources that I can find on my campus, and like definitely trying to impact the UCI student community too, because everyone is going through so much, and especially with COVID-19 and the effects it's had on our mental health, I want to do more that I can to better support the students, because mental health is so incredibly important, and it takes a lot of courage to seek out mental health resources. And I don't want people to seek out a resource and realize that they don't have appointment times readily available for them, because then that might bar them from going in the future. So definitely trying to like solve that issue or find avenues around that issue.
With social media and everything, it can be kind of negative. I know that you were saying at the beginning of our talk, sometimes you would see cyberbullying on social media. So with that kind of affecting our everyday mood and influencing how we view ourselves and how we view others, it can kind of distort our actual mental health in a negative light. We do have another question from Shimmy, and she says, what is your favorite accomplishment under UCI mental health?
Yeah, so this is outside of my current resource lab, but I was a part of ASUCR, or I'm still a part of it, but for the first 3 years, I was a part of the Mental Health Commission. And last year, I served as commissioner, and the year before that, I was a lead. But every year, we actually put on a conference called the Reclaim Mental Health Conference, and it's completely open to the public. It's free, food is provided, but it's a 2-day conference, and we usually have like 200 to 300 attendees per day, and it's completely student-led and run. So we are the people who like design all the conference t-shirts, the logos. We choose all the speakers. We invite workshops speakers. We also invite students to share their story, and it's a really healing space. And it's always during May as well, because May is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And really hearing people talk about mental health and not seeing like it being so stigmatized is a really healing space for me. And being in a room where other people are really interested in mental health and actually want to learn and are open to having these conversations leaves you feeling inspired, because you meet people from all over literally California. We had people come up from NorCal for this conference, and just hearing their perspective really helped me become like more open-minded when it comes to like some of the barriers that people face with mental health. So that conference always holds a special place in my heart. And, like conferences like those really help me become more exposed to some of the additional barriers people face and what I can do to be a better mental health like advocate and ally.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like an amazing event to to be a part of, not only just kind of creating the schedule, the planning, who's going to be on the board talking and just everything in general. So that definitely sounds like such a rewarding time, especially when it's all said and done. You're like, oh, wow, I did that. It feels so great to say that I accomplished this. We have a couple more questions. So we have a question. Isabelle, what advice do you have for students who are going through challenges and finding their career paths?
Yeah, that was pretty much me. For the first 3 years of my college life, I also didn't know where I wanted to go in the future, if I wanted to go to grad school or if I wanted to pursue something else. And I think it's like completely okay. First of all, it's completely okay to not know what you want to go or where you want to go in the future. But I think it's also important to recognize hey, there are steps that I can take, whether that's taking classes in different areas. So, maybe if you're interested in business or political science or psychology, taking a class in there and seeing if you are interested in the topics that are presented. One thing I really like is LinkedIn, having informational interviews in potential areas that you're interested in. And one thing I really like to do is search up, for me, I just searched up HR individuals who also went to UCI, and alumni from your school are really, really passionate about just talking with you, especially if they know you came to the same school. So definitely holding those informational interviews, but also don't beat yourself up over it if you don't know where you want to go in the future. There are steps that you can take, but know that it's completely normal to not know where you want to be in the future. And I thought coming into UCI, I wanted to go to grad school, but right now my career path changed and I want to go into HR and maybe get a master's later on. But, it's okay to not know, but just make sure you take active steps to figure out where you want to go, whether that's taking classes, informational interviews, or just talking out with your friends, figuring out what your passions are and seeing what areas that you can go into with that passion.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Oftentimes people see their life as a timeline of events that should be happening, and we need to stop normalizing that just because it's not how life actually works. Things happen, events change. I guess pandemics happen as well. So it's definitely not always what you think it's going to be, and that's okay. People, have differences within their career paths. Oh, I want to do this now instead of that. And we should be normalizing that instead of, oh, I need to do A, B, C in order to feel successful and fulfilled within myself. So I agree with you 100% on that. Taking the time to kind of sit back, really estimate or reevaluate what your passions are and what you want to be doing within your life is such an important thing when you're figuring out what your next step within your career or your personal life will be. We have some more questions as well. So a LinkedIn user said, what are some of your favorite mental health resources?
I really, really so I actually have a document that I keep a list of mental health resources for. But some of my mental health resources include of just in the New York Times, they actually have this resource where it's a completely list of calm resources. So they have videos that you can look at. They also have pictures that are really soothing. Other applications that I really like are Headspace and Calm. Headspace right now for LA County user, or if you live in LA County, it's free. The premium version, you just need to search up Headspace LA County free premium version. I really like that. So it's a quick 5 to 10 minute meditation sessions, and they're different based on what you might need. So let's say you need to relax, they have different meditation sessions for when you need to relax. There's different meditation sessions if you're having anxiety or a panic attack, or if you're stressed. So I really like mental health applications, especially smartphone ones that are related to meditation. And there's also a lot of great videos on YouTube that you can listen to. I really like TEDx talks too about mental health. Those are really, really inspiring. And definitely for me, I really like the talks about since I'm Asian American, hearing other Asian Americans talk about mental health, since there is that stigma. There's a lot of great videos that you can check out also on YouTube regarding mental health as well.
Awesome. Thank you for those resources, Isabelle. And our last question is from Serena. She asks, what steps do you think educational institutions should be taking to improve students' mental health during COVID-19?
Yeah, I definitely think, at least like based off my own experience at UCI, there hasn't been, or like when COVID hit, there was a lot of emails being sent out about mental health resources to the whole campus community, but I haven't seen that recently. And, the pandemic hasn't stopped. So I really hope like educational institutions, even if they're completely going remote, continue to send out resources to students, whether it's like highlighting one mental health resource per week and like letting students know how to actually access it. Because one thing I've noticed is it's really hard to find information on who to call, how to set up an appointment, like what events are actually happening related to mental health. So definitely just having an email about that and sending it out to students, because you never know like who might really need it at one given point in time. I think educational institutions also just need to invest more in their mental health resources right now, especially because COVID-19 will definitely cause an increased need for mental health resources. So institutions should better be prepared for that, and just investing in making sure that students are okay. Whether it's like, I mean, I know there's like a lot of students per institution, but like having individual check-ins if possible, or asking students like or having the school reach out to students and asking like what can the school do better when it comes to mental health resources or resources in general. Since I know for like my school, a lot of students are struggling with like contacting certain offices. So having UCR reach out to students and ask what can we do better, and actually following up with it through action items.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree. When I was at my previous institution, there was a lot of buzz going out about different resources, and then sometimes it does kind of trail off. So it is important to just kind of keep those resources fresh, new, up and coming, up to date, and providing them on a consistent basis, because you do never know when somebody is going to need. From Andrew, and he says, are you considering occupational psychology for post-grad studies?
Yeah, so actually the reason why I got interested in HR is because I took an industrial organizational psychology class actually this past year. And what I'm hoping to do career-wise right now is going into an entry-level HR or recruiting or talent acquisition position, and then later getting a master's in HR or like a master's in industrial organizational psychology, since I know they're a little bit different, but they're still closely related. But yes, definitely considering that as an avenue.
Awesome. Well, I wish you all of the best of luck, Isabelle. It's been such a pleasure having you on our live talk today. I really want to thank you again one more time for taking the time and talking about this important, incredibly important topic with all of our viewers. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. I will talk to you very soon. And thank you everyone so much for tuning in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for everyone for like asking amazing questions. And if you ever want to like talk about mental health, I always love talking about mental health. So feel free to chat with me over LinkedIn.
Sweet. Bye, everyone.